What's up everybody, this is the Upstart Goblin here. As most of you have probably seen already, today Konami released the official TCG ban list for April 2015. I'm not going to go into this video into what was actually hit and what wasn't too much. Instead, I'm going to talk about the winners and losers of the ban list. The decks that came out on top and got the most out of this ban list, and the decks that were the most damaged by this ban list. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. It's something I haven't done quite yet. But you guys gotta let me know what you think about it, and I'm just gonna get right into it. So first off, I'm gonna start with the losers. Loser number 5, the Blackwings. They did lose their best matchup in the Cleefort matchup because Icarus Attack really did a lot of good things for them in that matchup. Skill Drain really didn't affect them too much, Vanities didn't do a whole lot, and even with the release of Premium Gold 2 yesterday and the potential they still had with that, they're going to lose a lot of it because they lost their own ability to play Vanities as well as the best matchup they had in the TCG. Necroz is still a definite problem for this deck. I've been playtesting with quite a bit. So like I said, this isn't detrimental for the Blackwings. Even though they weren't directly touched, it's more the format shift that's going to affect them negatively. So I think that they're going to underperform based on what people are expecting for this format. Number 4, the Hieratic Archetype in general. It seems to me that it's pretty frequently people are going to hype up the Hieratic deck. It's happened a few times when we had that Hieratic ruler stretch when people were playing that deck for, I don't know, a month or so back in Firefist format of winter last year. But it never really performed as well as it's supposed to. Everyone was thinking this deck was going to be amazing even when it first came out. And it just never really has been a dominant tier 1 deck. And the reason is because Hieratics aren't good enough to stand alone as their own deck. I remember there was a couple random tops when people were playing 3 card and just trying to get as much advantage as possible so they could OTK with it. But all in all, it's really not as consistent as it needs to be. I've seen it played in Blue Eyes, a Hieratic engine. I've seen it played in, the new Red Eye stuff everyone's talking about. But the big one here would be the Dark Matter Hieratics. And I'm saying that the Hieratic Archetype loses as number 4 because it's just another disappointment for this deck. People were expecting this to finally be a tier 1 Hieratic deck, and it's just not going to do it. Regardless of the fact that they got 3 Seal of Convocation back from the ban list, the deck just flat out needs more support if it's going to compete in today's meta. Loser number 3, Burning Abyss. Burning Abyss got Tour Guide hit to 1 and lost 2 copies of Vanity's Emptiness. In addition to that, their best matchup was Cleefort's because of Fire Lake, and they could easily just destroy fields. And even then, that wasn't a guaranteed win matchup. That was still a relatively difficult matchup. Win percentage maybe like between 2/3 and 3/4 of the time. That's not good enough, even if the deck still existed and it was still going to be a big threat. So they lost that best matchup, and now they're just going to lose harder to Necroz because they don't have Vanities to shut them down. The Tour Guide's going to actually decrease their consistency quite a bit because Tour Guide did so much for that deck, and people were saying that, oh, well, it's not the problem, Sir's the problem. And well, I kind of agree with that. Tour Guide's actually probably the better hit because it's going to make the deck a lot less consistent. You won't be seeing the Graph first turn anyway, every turn. You won't be seeing the Sir first turn necessarily, and a lot of what that's going to do, it's going to make this deck very inconsistent, much like Lightsworn. You're going to have to rely on more milling the Burning Abyss you need if you're going to be able to play. The 2 Emptiness Gone's going to hurt, and if this deck's going to do anything, it's going to have to be really, really, really innovative in what they're doing. I know that Burning Abyss lately have been playing 3 copies of Mass Change second to make Dark Law, and that's a good thing, but really I don't see them being anywhere near what they were in this format. Loser number 2 is Cleefort, and regardless of how much they lost, they are not the biggest loser in this. They did have one of their scouts gone. They lost 2 copies of Skill Drain, 2 copies of Vanities, and 2 copies of Sacrifice. Far and away, Sacrifice is the biggest problem for the deck because that's kind of what made the deck function. If your opponent blows up a scout now and you only have the 1 Sacrifice and it's been used already, you're kind of in trouble in the sense that if they blow up a scout, you're probably going to lose the game. You only have 2 scouts to work with now too, so 3 Summoner Art is now going to search 2 scout and possibly 1 or maybe 2 of Monolith. The Skill Drain 1 and Emptiness those are your biggest floodgates. You're not going to be able to play them very often anymore. especially against, some of the big decks. Having one emptiness against Necroz is a problem, I don't care who you are. And the skill drain, same thing. Skill drain at 1 is kind of what made the deck giant, as well as stopping the opponent's effects. So those were two of the biggest problem cards. The nice thing that this does, it does really, really reduce the weakness to Fairy Wind. So the side decking that people are going to have to do for Cleafort's going to have to change a little bit. But I expect that instead of Fairy Wind, people will just side Twister more often and Typhoon more often, and it won't really be that big of a deal. Cleafort will still be competitive, I think. I see them as maybe kind of what Stellar Knights were this format, where they occasionally take a top, but for the most part, they're not going to be dominant or in the top lists. Moving on to our number 1 loser, Galaxy Eyes Doesn't Matter Dragon. This card is basically irrelevant now. It was so hyped, everyone was talking about it for so long, prices were jumping all over the place, and because Dragon Rulers were banned, this isn't even going to matter. It completely destroys the combo. I don't care what deck you were using Dark Matter Dragons in. The only thing that I can see this even really being used in anymore is Chaos Dragons, and then you'll have to run some weird stuff like Blue Eyes, and yeah, it just gets weird. I really don't see this card being nearly as much as an impact as we thought it was going to be, and I'm kind of disappointed in this because I had a bunch of duel videos ready to upload to you guys, but at this point they're pretty relevant. So I think any deck that uses Dark Matter Dragon will be probably reverting to what they were, with the exception of Mythic Rulers, since they can't revert to what they were. I see Hierarchics going pure if people are going to play them, which I seriously don't think is a good idea, even with 3 Convocation. And the other one was the Galaxy Photon, which is still just going to be suboptimal. Moving into the happier side of things, we'll talk about the winners. Winner number 5, Six Samurai. The second Shien really does help with the way the deck runs. It gives you another option to go into, because at this point, if one of your Shiens gets banished or destroyed, you're pretty much in trouble for the rest of the game. You have Barkion and Beast still go into, but I mean, you lost your big card and you committed so many resources to that, and it's not like Burning Abyss where the resources replace themselves all the time. This will help it just get a second element to it, and that if you lose your one Shien on the push, it's not an auto-lose. The deck still has 3 Reinforcement of the Army and 3 Shien Smoke Signal to have some pretty good consistency there, probably upstarts too. And I mean, 6 Samurai United, you can see a lot of cards in your first turn. The deck still doesn't have Gateway, it's still not going to be what it ever was. And it's still a one-trick pony in the sense that it searches a bunch of things, it specials a bunch of things, and it makes Beast, Barkion, or Shien. And that's pretty much all it does. The rest of the extra deck's pretty irrelevant. I guess they can make Armadis, and I guess they can make some of the heroic Exceeds and whatnot, but for the most part that's what the deck does, and that's what you can expect playing the deck. And it's so expected what the deck's going to do that it really doesn't matter, and the deck's not going to be competitive, so I don't know, I still wouldn't try it. Winner number 4 is Ritual Beast. This deck's actually been seeing quite a bit of play in the face of Necroz, and it's a special summon dependent deck. So it's been having a lot of problems with Cleaforts and the matchups that are going to play 3 copies of Vanity's Emptiness, because it really does shut the deck down if you don't have an out to it. With only 1 Vanity's Emptiness now in every deck, and Skill Drain basically eliminated too, only 1 Skill Drain from the Cleafort matchup, the deck's going to have a lot better matchups and it's going to be able to compete a lot more. The deck can still do some crazy things. I know people have been calling it Win for ND. I personally agree. I've been playing this deck for a month or 2 now, and the deck can just do so many things on the first turn that if you don't have Maxi, I'm going to get so much advantage on you and create the back row that I'm going to need to win the game, and you really can't do a whole lot about it. So with decks that are going to be playing fewer traps now and fewer Vanity's Emptiness, I think we're going to move into a more offensively oriented format, even more than this one, where everything's going to be pretty much OTK or do a lot of pushes or have some kind of lockdown with monster effects. And really, I just see Ritual Beast competing even a lot better than they were this format. So yeah, I definitely look for this deck to take a couple spots in tops here and there, and generally being a pretty competitive deck that you can expect to see at tournaments. So if you don't already know what these guys do, definitely take a look. They're quite a good deck. Winner number 3 is Sylvan's, mostly because of the 3rd Lone Fire Blossom. That Lone Fire Blossom can add a lot of consistency to the deck and getting to its big plays, and since it can push out 27 and 2400 beaters, and Sage Core 26, 27 and 2600 beaters with just a normal summon, while loading the grade up with Lone Fires to special back with Soul Charge or Peacekeeper or whatever you want to play in this deck, that's really going to help the deck be a lot more consistent than it was. It still has Karee Bandit, it still has Miracle Fertilizer, the deck can still do a lot of things. and the fact that vanities and skill drain are reduced is really going to help this as well. See, I think that a lot of the card decks and cards that are going to really improve because of this list weren't actually related to the list. It's the domino effect. It's what's going to happen afterwards that's going to change the format. Sylvans also have a reprint of their key cards in Premium Gold 2. They're going to have Sylvan Charity and Sage Koya reprinted, as well as they get the new Rose cards, which I don't know how well they've worked. I really haven't tested with them to know. But the other thing is that Sylvans now have Glow Up Bulb, which they did not have at their prime when they were, dominating the national scene last year, even though Hat won nationals. And I believe because of the more availability to get the cards, the popularity of the deck will increase, as well as the third Lone Fire and the better matchups. The deck's going to be a lot better than it was. Will it be competitive? Will it be tier 1? I'm going to say yes for competitive, no for tier 1. Probably about the same thing with Stellar Knights for this format, where the occasional top. Winner number 2 is Firefist. Finally, Konami gave us Firefist Spirit back to 3. This was never a justified hit in my opinion, and I'm really glad it's back, because now the deck is finally at full power where it was before, and for the first time ever in the TCG, we're going to be able to play 3-axis. The 3-axis was never actually legal here because they hit Spirit preemptively, because it was destroying so much in the OCG. But really, I don't think anything the deck did was unfair. The cards were very good and it was very consistent, but I really don't think there were any unfair plays they could make. In addition to that, their removal of skill drain is going to cause them to have a better matchup, and a lot of their problems will be eliminated because of that. And Tenki is at 3, and Wolfbark is back at 3 as of last ban list, or 2 ban lists ago, I believe. So the deck at full power, it's going to be a control deck. It's going to be having some tops. I think it can be between tier 2 and tier 1, maybe somewhere around tier 1.5. About where Burning Abyss was at the end of this format, where they're still very expected, still very competitive, but not quite the best deck. And finally, number 1 winner of the ban list is Necroz. Yes, they got a couple hits, but they avoided a potential catastrophe here. If anything like this happened where, as it did in the OCG, where Unicorn went to 1, and Manju went to 1, and Senju went to 1, and Preparation went to 1, all on the same list, I'd be really concerned for the deck. However, the deck just lost a little bit of consistency here. They lost 2 Preparation of Rites, which is fine because the card in that deck is pretty unfair, I'd say. It's a +1 almost at any point in the duel, and because of Brionic and Cause Loss, it really is search any card in your deck. The deck is still going to be very good. The Jin Lock is still a thing. The deck is still very consistent. It's still got 3 Senju, 3 Manju, and 2 Brionic. The hardest matchup was absolutely wrecked too. That's the other thing. With Cleaforts being destroyed, Necroz basically has control over the entire format, at least until World Superstars or Cross Souls come out. I think Necroz are going to be dominating even harder here than they were. So that's all I got to say on that, but wow, we are in for a hell of a format, and hopefully we get some cool stuff in World Superstars that'll make Nationals a really interesting thing to play at. So that's the end of this video, guys. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel. I put out a lot of good videos like this, and I hope you guys really like what you saw here. Follow me on Twitter if you want updates for when I post a video. My handle is @UpstartGoblin. And that's all I have to say for this video, guys. Thank you as always for watching, and peace out.